Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart, and episode 3 of The Old World is where I'm joined by Mark, my co-host, and we chat about what is the spirit of the game.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club, your event or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description.
Here again, Mark. How are you getting on?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, Drew. How are you?
Yeah, good. We can pretend we haven't just been chatting for an hour and 12 minutes. You got to break the fourth wall. We're here again for another chat. The first two episodes, proper episodes, and our little pilot have gone really well. I said this last time, and I'm still surprised about how many people have watched them. So thank you for all of you who are back for the official episode 3 and all the comments and all the engagement for the last 2 videos. And we want the same thing again. We want you to put your own opinions in the comments below. A lot of what we're trying to do with this podcast is to answer questions or ask questions and have a friendly conversation. There will be some that are a little bit more generalized in terms of chatter, especially when there's a release one day, maybe. But we're going to keep trying to have conversations that are sort of 30 to 45 minutes where we try and answer a question or at least discuss a topic. And today's no different. The spirit of the game topic. And it's
Yes.
an old topic, isn't it? And it's not anything. It's not even just a wargaming thing. The spirit of the game is talked about for so many different pastimes and sports. I'm a huge cricket fan, and spirit of the game comes up quite a lot, especially in Australia versus England games. And for what it's worth, as an Englishman, Johnny Bairstow should have stayed in his crease. But we'll leave that there because it's a very niche comment. Some people will get it, some people won't at all. But before we get into all of that, I just want to go through a couple of things. So we're going to give away a couple of calendars, 3 calendars, in fact, which we announced on the last episode. We will announce the winners for those at the end of the video. So you have to stay and watch, or you have to use your skip button and fast forward through, but you don't want to be doing that.
Don't skip.
No, don't skip at all. Just want to give a shout out to the Miniature Realms Discord. And there's a link in the video description below. Go and join it. I always shout it out at the end of videos, and people miss that sometimes. It's a really friendly place. Mark's a moderator there. Super friendly place. And the kind of conversations we have here are very welcome there, if you're well behaved. If you're not, you'll just get booted out. So do come and join that. If you want to support me and the channel and all the other stuff I do on the channel as well, there's a Patreon link there as well. And there's multiple different tiers. I do painting, coaching, tuition and stuff. But the very base layer entry is just a £1, or depending on your local currency. But anyway, so the topic, spirit of the game. It was brought to my attention again recently. I was reminded by the White Dwarf article, Spirit of the Game, by Dave Kane, I believe, back in White Dwarf 221. That was a long time ago, probably during a period where I wasn't doing so much gaming, actually. But it's this lovely article with loads of the team at that time chipping in with their own comments on things on the Spirit of the Game and what it means to them. Some of the comments and opinions, I think, were a little bit edition specific at the time. And I don't think that some of that's super useful. I think Paul Sawyer's one was about the forbidden rod should be forbidden, and I don't think that that's super helpful. You design a rule for a game and you say that you shouldn't use it in your own publication. It feels a bit weird. But we're not going to kind of get into that level of granularity for it. But it's a really, really good article, and it contains the famous Nigel Stillman Stillmania section as well, which gets used so many times. We might touch on it as examples, but we want to talk about it in more of a general sense. And I've talked too much already, so I'm going to pass you over to Mark. And for Mark, what's your kind of your overall feeling on it? Your headline. What is the spirit of the game to you?
I think the spirit of the game to me is basically it's the balance between everybody who is playing having a good time and the feeling that you are controlling your forces well to the best of
Hmm.
your ability, which basically when you look at it in a more easier to understand sort of like terms, because I understand that that does cover a huge plethora of emotion. It's some people would like to win at all costs and they get fun from that. Some people would like just to play a nice, relaxing game, and that's where they're going to get their fun from. And then I would say that the majority of people are probably somewhere in between that.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's really about how you perceive how you want the game to be played so that you get the maximum level of enjoyment and interaction from it.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, especially in terms of enjoyment, because this is a pastime. It's a game. It's can be played competitively, but it's not designed necessarily to be played competitively. Enjoyment is the primary thing. It's for fun. It's not for work, though it can become sort of work. So it's got to be about enjoyment. And for me, it's quite hard to find a sort of a single definition for the spirit of the game, and that's
Yeah.
highlighted by that article. And I encourage people to go and find it. You can find the White Dwarf quite easily online for people that don't have that copy. There's such a wide range of opinions and examples of what is the spirit of the game, and I think that highlights what it's all about. Really, there's not one single correct definition for it, because it's all about the context, I think,
Mm.
of the game you're playing. So if you're playing at a very high-end competitive event, be that an international competitive event, the spirit of the game may be very different to what it would be if you're playing your son and your kitchen room table. This is a totally different set of parameters and on what you're trying to achieve from the game. When I'm playing my son, it's very much about making sure we both have a good time, making sure that
Yeah.
that I'm not taking advantage of his age, and then I'm trying to make sure that the game's balanced and enjoyable for both of us. Whereas a high-end competitive game, and I've never played at that level, but a lot of it might be about having a really good, clean game. And making sure that there aren't any fractious moments because the things are handled in a way that prevent that. So there's a wide plethora of different sort of answers of what is the spirit of the game. I don't think there's one single definition at all, but it does mean that both players hopefully are playing on the same wavelength at that time, and when they differ slightly, that there's enough mitigations in between that to make sure that no issues arise during that game.
Yeah, it comes down to the interaction again of you playing with people who play the game how you like it to be played, and you playing the game how they like it to be played. And then when you get that nice matchup like that, then that's always when I personally think you have the most enjoyment from the game, and you can play it in almost a clean state, as it were.
Hmm.
Um, isn't always possible. Everybody has, as you say, there's no one definitive meaning for the spirit of the game. It means something different to everybody. Um, and it's fast becoming our catchphrase. I think, just have fun, but really do just have fun.
Yeah,
That's what it's all about.
yeah, I agree. I think there's something you were saying quite a lot about the communication is the key
Mm,
point there, isn't it? And so examples again, if I'm playing with my son Jacob, the communication will be a lot of it will be like, if you do this, this is going to happen. Making sure he's clear on a rule, making sure I'm explaining what my stuff does to him, so there aren't any sort of moments that he ends up feeling that he didn't know what was going to happen, and giving him a lots of opportunity to think about what he's going to do before he makes that decision. At a competitive level, it might well be before you start playing, him going, well, okay, well, we're treating this as open terrain. We're treating, all of that kind of conversation is it's a different level. It's because you have a different a different level of understanding before it starts. I mean, you got some more thoughts on communication because you play a lot more competitive stuff, or at least involved in the competitive scene more than I am at the moment.
yeah, I think that if everybody could communicate with their opponents even 10% better than they do, that there would be a massive swing into more not enjoyable games, because I don't think that's the right term, but the games would be a lot cleaner.
Mhm.
I will say, from being around Team England, that the players in Team England, each and every one of them communicates fantastically well with their opponent. This is not something that just happens. This is another learned skill where you realize that you need to communicate everything so everything's clear. And I don't think that it filters down all the way through. I think quite often there's moments where people don't communicate, maybe at local clubs or whatever, and then you get into this sort of sticky situation, and that's where the boundaries start to frame. You start to maybe move away from playing the game or the spirit of the game as intended. So
Mm.
I think that learning how to talk to each other is incredibly important. And just trying to be calm and rational, not being hot-headed or anything, is a massive part of the spirit of the game as well. Play the game for intensive purposes, like you would, with the sport, in the manner that it's intended to be played in.
Yeah,
I think if we could all do that a little bit better, I think really the games of Warhammer that we have would be definitely more enjoyable. I have no complaints with the games I have, because I play with mostly a bunch of friends, and we've all been playing Warhammer together for years. So we all know intrinsically what we all want from the game, and I think it only maybe comes to light if you're playing somebody you haven't played before, or it's a more competitive event or something like that. And as you say, when you're playing your son, that the reward factor for him is by you giving him the chance to know what all of his options are, so that he can make an informed choice now, gives him a huge feeling of just good vibes when the next time you play something like that happens, and he remembers part of it, and then he acts off of the informed information that he's already got.
yeah,
Because that's all part of just like the learning process, and that's a great thing to be able to impart to your children, really, I think.
yeah.
So yeah, well done, you, Stu. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Well, it's to stop him walking off with a face like thunder afterwards and actually wanted to play again. Um, but making a joke about that is probably the important lesson for that kind of communication for all of us, regardless of who you're playing at and what the setting is. Be that a setting where both players are very experienced, you still want that player to want to play you again. And then that's really good. I mean, you're talking about communication. Another thing is, for me, is just general etiquette, and it seems really an obvious thing to say, but it may well be the rules you set before the game about our dice landing in the dice tray, or it doesn't matter if they bounce out. It doesn't matter what you choose. You just make sure you may be clear about that to start with. Especially, it doesn't matter so much at home, but if you're at an event, that definitely is good. Making sure that you're picking up the misses and not the hits, and you're taking time, allowing your opponent to see what you've rolled, making it very clear. Little niggles like that can really fester over the game if you're someone that's very quick and grab things and knock things on the floor like I just did then, but grab things and pick your dice up, and someone's like, okay, didn't see that, okay, and then there's something else that happens later on that's a bit more contentious. That narrative that they've built in their head of are you trying to trick them or cheat them will build. So sometimes just being really open and clear with those kind of things can be really helpful as well. I'm a bit of I'd say a stickler would be the wrong way of describing it, because I'm very English and I'm very British, and I wouldn't pull people up on it, but I'm a bit of an anti-bendy tape measure person. And you'll see someone turn a tape measure on its side and bend it round a building or something, and then move that, I'm, for those people who don't know, when you do that, you're discounting the width of a base that has to move around an obstruction, which means that you can move a little bit further. In many cases, it doesn't matter, but you still see people doing it. And every event I've been to, and I don't go to loads, one round someone will be doing that for sure, and they'll be bending their tape measure around something, and then they'll see where it lands to, and they'll put their miniature there. Sometimes it doesn't matter, sometimes it would do, and they end up moving an extra inch or two. So basic etiquette like that is just really good. Is that you're clean with your movements, you're clean with your measurements, and those kind of things. Especially in a game where it's quite important. Now, I'm not someone that argues over a millimeter or something, but doing that kind of thing is just an example of, I think, just sloppy play that looks bad. And again, same thing. If you're someone that next turn you end up arguing over a ruling, you start to build an impression of that player. Well, they're sloppy with their measurements. They pick their dice up too fast, and now they're arguing about these rules. They may be giving yourself, giving the wrong impression. They might be super, super nice and fair person, but it just doesn't look good.
No, the pre-built narrative is already in your head then about, he's using the old bend it like Beckham wheeling rules to get around that difficult terrain with his dwarfs. And I'll tell you now, half inch to a dwarf, that's a big chunk of your charge moves. So you want that extra half inch, but it's not right to expect it because you're not allowed it. So, and every club or group of players has got a bendy tape guy or a fast scoop dice guy or things like that. And it doesn't necessarily happen when you're playing with your friends, because over the course of time things like that tend to just iron themselves out really, and people just stop doing it. But when you're playing with people that you don't know, as you say, the first sort of like pre-built narrative of somebody can just be like, oh, he's fudging his movement a little bit, or we picked those dice up quick, and I didn't really get to see a glimpse of that to see whether or not it was a 4 or a 5 when he needed a 5, and then something else can happen, and your opponent could be the nicest person in the entire world, but you've already got this pre-built narrative then of, they was a little bit sloppy, and now they've done this. Am I being played here? And obviously, then you're moving a significant trajectory away from the spirit of the game, aren't you? Because you're into the realms of the people fudging that on purpose, and that's never a good position to be in. I don't think so. It's almost always better to just say, oh, could you just, when you roll your dice, could you just leave them open a little bit longer, because I've got bad eyesight or whatever. I just need to make sure I can see what you're rolling. And don't forget when you move like that, don't forget to take into account that little wiggle. It's probably easier if you straight edge it, because you'll get the proper movement then. Just if you pick it up, not necessarily the first time it occurs, but maybe the second time it occurs, then I think overall you'll have a much better game, because you've set the narrative of your boundaries for what the spirit of the game is. And again, it's just about communication. Just talk to your opponent, have a laugh and a joke with them. Don't make anything sort of like naturally aggressive or anything like that. Just say, oh, any chance you leave your dice open a little bit longer, just so I can, because I didn't quite catch that one. And if you do that and people talk to each other, then generally you find that most of these problems just iron themselves out naturally.
And I think you just demonstrated the ways to do that in a diplomatic way, which is important. And a couple of other things I can think of that kind of fall into that general area is if you're going to an event or something, make sure you read the rules pack. And be aware of what's in it. You don't have to memorize it all. I'm terrible at remembering all the stuff that's in a rules pack, but you should have a basic idea. And sometimes a rules pack will give you a really good idea about the type of event it is. It may well even have a line that says, this is a generally laid back event. Please try not to go too hard with the list. You get that kind of stuff. And if you don't read the pack, you might design a list or something that, but it doesn't really match the vibe as well. You can get quite a lot from sort of doing research into the event that you're going to before you go, and you find out whether it is the kind of event that you take your GT list to. Is it one that you take your just a slightly toned down version on? And it's hard. You can't always get that right. You don't know what other people are going to bring. But just being aware of those things, making sure you have read that pack once, just shows a bit of respect to your own players as well. I think we're stretching out a little bit into the not quite as important if you're generally polite at the table and do the things we talked about already. It's going to cover most things. I mean, probably goes on a little bit. You've got some ideas around different play styles and how that sort of builds in, haven't you?
There's really the thing that sums it up for me is Rick Priestley had this amazing quote, and it's not a huge quote. Even from back then to now, it still stands true. Look at whether or not someone is more interested in playing the rules than playing the game.
Yeah.
And I think if you can do that and identify where that fits within the confines of what's going on in the game, then
Yes.
that gives you a really strong understanding of where you are and the levels that you need to be at, so that both of you are a almost unspoken level without
Hmm.
needing to communicate that. I'm a big advocate for communication. I think you should always talk to your opponent, because I think that is the biggest way of getting the idea of knowing where you're both going to stand in the situation. So I'd always say that first, but as a general backup, if you keep that in the back of your mind, certainly for competitive events, I think that's always going to stand you in good stead, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think it's reasonable for your opponent to want to play stuff as you know as tight to the rules as
Mm.
possible. You may have different interpretations, be that rules as written, rules as intended, etc. And you should be, you know, if someone's like, I want to play this properly, you should accept that gracefully, even if you're quite often more of a relaxed player. And sometimes it's those initial turn or so you get a, like you said, you identify the kind of opponent you
Mm.
have. And when if you both find out you're a little bit relaxed, we've all had those games when you go, oh, we're not, yeah, we're just, yeah, that's in, yeah, that's in. And you end up having a slightly more relaxed game because of that. But you can't expect that either. If someone wants to do everything by the letter of the law, then you have to respect that as well. It doesn't mean they're stuffy or not fun to play against. You know, that's fine. It's definitely there's some nuance there. Don't get me wrong. You know, if someone's always trying to find, you know, looking for a rule to suit their argument rather than looking to get the rule correct, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
I think we can all do that sometimes as well. When you feel like something doesn't feel right, and you spend maybe a little bit too long trying to find a rule to suit your argument. And I've done it as well in the past. And then you look later on and you go, no, they were right. And you just think that could I have handled that better at the time as well. So sometimes it's the moment of holding, you know, biting your tongue. Let's move on from that, because there's more to this hobby and than that. And that's probably more good spirit of the game rather than spending too long focusing on a disagreement around rules or something like that.
Mm. And I think it's important as well, if in general, um, something is going to take you more than maybe a minute and a half to resolve because you've got to look something up. There's no issues with calling the TO or the judge over, and we'll go into this a little bit later. But you know, one of my big bugbears about the spirit of the game is that it's entirely probable that people pick armies to go to events that they're not quite as well prepared for or have played as many times with as they would have liked, and they're not as experienced with it.
Hmm.
And this means that the time they take to play their turns can be elongated dramatically, and not allowing your opponent to have the same amount of time as you is that's a big bugbear for me. If it's a 3 hour session and somebody's taking 2 hours and you're getting an hour, it's it
Hmm.
doesn't sit well with me, that. And I understand that some armies have a much higher skill ceiling than others, but if you're going to play one of those types of armies, you need to, certainly at a competitive level, you need to be bang on with it, because if you're not, to me, that is almost breaking the contract of the spirit of the game by doing that.
Yeah.
And as I say, we'll talk about calling a judge over and whatever a little bit later on. But but again, that can be solved with communications again.
Hmm.
Just saying, oh, can we pick it up a bit because we're we're starting to stagnate a bit. And don't find yourself pushed into the position where you're both relaxed, and then you're relaxed and you think you're having a nice game, and then it gets to the end of the game and you've not had as much time as your opponent has, because effectively they've, and I don't like to say this, but effectively they've played you by both of you being relaxed and having a nice conversation and everything. That was
Hmm.
a something that was further behind the scenes. It was just an act. So, and that will give you one of the worst feel bads in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
entire world. So don't leave yourself open for that. I don't think you're going to get that happening at anything other than the highest competitive levels,
yeah,
but you never know. There's always slow players everywhere, so
yeah.
it's if you're playing with it, like if you're playing with a really high skill based army like Cathay or something like that, where
Hmm.
you've got to think about every single movement, does make a huge difference. So yeah, just bear that in
Hmm.
mind, I think, as well.
It is a good. I mean, I don't play competitively a lot, so something I'm often aware of. I mean, the last event I played with, I had a very, very good doubles partner who run the games mostly. So it was very easy for me to fall back on his speed of knowledge. So I wasn't slowing any games down. But I would say that you don't want to put people off going to events because they feel, oh, I'm not experienced enough to be able to play
Mm,
fast enough. I'd say you still go, and that's not the problem. But maybe then be aware of the time, and if you're taking too long, and your opponent is willing to help you. If you're taking a long time, you might have to sort of accept their advice
yeah,
at that point a bit more, and realize that it's only fair that they're helping you to speed up the game. So at that point, don't push back and say, well, it's my army, I'm going to double check, because if they're clearly more knowledgeable at some point, it's probably in the spirit then to
yeah,
say, okay, I am going to bow to your experience. Yes, you could take advantage of me, but you don't know your own rules anyway. It might be the right thing to do, because it's got to be that balance between them helping you, but then also you, like you've said, not taking their time as well, because it's
yeah,
tricky, because people don't know always genuinely trying to game for time. They just don't know the game as well. Be honest. Say I'm new. Saying I'm new to this army, because again, your opponent's more likely to say, oh, I realise why they're taking a little bit longer here, and
mm,
you might be able to help you and say, actually, did you know this works this way? It works that way, etc., etc. Let's talk about gotchas, Mark. You've got some
oh,
views on gotchas.
yeah. The second big bugbear. Thankfully, these have been eradicated for the most part. But back in the day when I was very active on the tournament scene in the late 80s and early 90s, the gotcha was a real thing, and people would always try and set it up, and you could allow 20 minutes every game for rules lawyering, and be moments where, well, you've done this, but I've got this, and because there was no real swapping of army lists or anything before the game. If you asked, you might be given a cursory look, or if you said, "Oh, what's that character got?" You might be told, but in general, if you asked that sort of question, you was generally regarded as a practitioner of the dark arts or something like that. And people were just a lot more win at all costs then.
Yeah,
Um, and it wasn't. I look back on it now compared to what we have now and what we had back then. It's so much of a better environment now than it was back then. But I think that was something back then that we had to go to get to where we are now. And I think in a certain way, maybe that sort of behaviour amongst people during that time period might have even prompted the reason for articles like the spirit of the game and things like
yeah,
that, where they realise, well, hold on, this is getting a bit out of hand here. We need to do something about it. And if you've got a group of your heroes in, the magazine that you patiently wait for every month to deliver, telling you, oh, don't do that. As much as we like to say, don't let people tell you how to play, you're you're going to listen to them, aren't you? Because they're your heroes, and if they're saying don't do that, then there's obviously a reason behind it. Doesn't matter if they explain what it is or not. They're doing an article, the spirit of the game, so they must be telling the truth. So you
Yeah.
yeah, you read it and go from there.
Yeah, yeah. I guess looking back, I mean, this is quite so much what this conversation's about. But I'm guessing, I mean, I remember the is it a closed list or is it an open list event kind of thing? But it's born from the game in the past where to make the game fun in a casual setting, because that's the way it was written. You didn't, you kept your magical items secret. You didn't pre-measure. You had fun trying to guess ranges because it was a fun thing. But as soon as you add a competitive element to that, then those things all become eminently gameable, whether it be just very experienced and good at measuring distances with your eyes, or whether you knew how long your forearm was to your finger and you could lean across, and all the other little tricks and things that you could do. Or you played on a realm of battle, which actually had it marked out into six.
Yeah.
There's so many things that would mean that those things aren't in games anymore for a reason, because they just created more problems than in a competitive format. Whereas if you're just playing at home, it could be fun to not know what that goblin champion had, and then find, because the gotcha was the fun bit, but that was written with an ethos of it doesn't matter who wins the game, and that clearly is not the way many people play. But you're right, not many people play like that anymore. It's not so much of a thing. I think there's more gotchas now because of level of experience, and that's quite hard to mitigate against. And it's not so much a gotcha; it's more of a case of, did you know that this miniature did this or did that? And sometimes you have a bit of a duty to explain what they do, or at least ask, do you know what this miniature does at the beginning of the game? But you also can't be held responsible, I don't think, to at least at a competitive event. You definitely should be your club, or when you're playing friendly, you should be constantly talking to your opponent about what things do. But if you're a competitive event, aside from sort of going through your stuff at the beginning and saying, reminding people at the right time, do you know what this does? You also shouldn't have to constantly, before every movement, remember, if you move him there, he's going to get you. If you do that, if you do sort of give that kind of information, that's super good sportsmanship. But there is a limit where you shouldn't feel inclined to, if that might actually cost you in the game as well. Lots of people do. Lots of people are super nice with that kind of stuff. But there is a limit where you shouldn't feel you have to either. It doesn't make you a bad player if your opponent is a little bit less experienced and has forgotten what something does. As long as you told them at the beginning, I think that's fair enough as well.
You enter the realm of the reverse gotcha there, don't you? Because basically what it has evolved into is maybe somebody isn't as experienced with the rules, and you say to them, don't forget, if you do that, and you're being super nice, but you're doing it right by giving them the warning, don't forget, if you do this, then this can happen.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you warn them, they decide they know best, they do it anyway, the wheels fall off the cart, they're then in a position with egg on their face, and then they're looking at you with the puppy dog eyes and saying, well, can we do it? Like, I wanted this to happen, but it hasn't happened because things have moved in such a way. Can we do it so that like that move didn't happen? And it's if you've warned them, you don't have to do takesy backsies. You've given them all the warning they need to know. And then what happens quite a lot of the time, unfortunately, is the person that you've warned who decided not to take your warning then gets quite upset and tries to apportion the blame onto you because you're not letting them take back a move, which you warned them that this would happen if you did that interaction. And then they get upset because you won't let them take the move back, and then they storm off. And at that point, all that does is leave the person who's done the right thing by trying to warn the opponent, if you do this, there is a chance this could happen. Just so you're aware, there's a chance this could happen, with a really bad taste in the mouth and feeling like they're the bad guys, when in fact they've gone above and beyond what they're expected to do in any form of sort of like spirit of the game
Yeah.
obligation to their opponent, and that's I don't like that. It's a really nasty thing to have done to you at the table. I'm not going to say it's premeditated because I don't think in the majority of cases it is, but I think that if you get caught doing that sort of thing after your opponent's warned you, I think you should just have to take it on the chin and not be in the position where you turn around and say, "Oh well, can we just say they're not involved in this manoeuvre that's happened, or we just move those back right to there," and then that didn't happen. You don't have to take that. That's somebody
No.
preying on your goodwill and good intentions for the spirit of the game. And I think unfortunately that is what the gotcha has, in today's terms, sort of like evolved into. I
Yes.
haven't
Yeah.
seen it
Yeah.
happen a lot, but it does happen.
No, it starts to sort of smell a bit more of someone who wants to win at whatever cost, doesn't it?
Go
Than
back to what Mr.
sportsmanship.
Priestley says,
Hmm.
somebody is more interested in playing the rules and playing the game. Only it turns out they don't know how to play the rules and they don't know how to play the game. So, yeah, not great. But there
No,
you go.
no.
That's enough negativity about that. That's not what the
Yes.
spirit of game is about. The spirit of game is about having fun.
Hmm.
So,
I
yes,
agree.
yes.
So you were talking a little bit about obviously the communication and how that relates to how the best way to call a judge over and handle that. You hinted that you wanted to talk about that a little bit more. I know you got some more thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important to just not make it a situation where you're aggressive or off towards your opponent. Have a laugh and say, "Oh, look, I'm not quite sure how this works. Is it okay with you if we just call over the TO or the judge and get them to explain it? Because that'll probably be quicker than us thumbing through a rule book, and I'd like to know how it works out, if that's okay." Make it diffuse the situation as it was by using good communication,
Mhm.
um, to ensure that you're still operating within the spirit of the game of the parameters that you've set yourself.
Yeah,
If you can do that, then then you're definitely the sort of person that I would love to play against, because people like that are you know in Warhammer. There's lots of them about in Warhammer, and it is great. It's not sort of like doom and gloom, but it's just the thing about don't make it confrontational. I think
yeah,
if you make it confrontational before you call over the judge or the TO, then there's always going to be a bit of a negative impact, and then you can find that spirals into a bit of a tit for tat scenario. So the next time in that game, if something comes up, you could find your opponent automatically saying, "Oh, well, we need to call the judge over because I don't think that works how you work." And it generally it's a very easy downward spiral to push yourself into. So if you can avoid doing that by just being, a good communicator and almost making light of the situation, I think that stands you in good stead.
yeah, yeah. We keep coming back to the same things all the time, aren't they? Is that communication thing? It's about that tone, the way you speak to people, the way you explain
Mm,
things, and trying to be a collegiate experience, mate, rather than and make sure things aren't. You're not making accusations. You're trying to work together to find out answers for things, especially like we say when your examples you've given of calling a judge over, and this is again, it's all fundamental to that kind of that environment of making sure
mm.
that you both understand the kind of game that you're playing, and that the higher up the competitive level, the higher the stakes are there in terms of making sure that you can navigate the game by communicating well. And it's just about being polite and courteous to people, isn't it? It's the backbone of human interaction, and we genuinely do, I believe, as human race,
Yeah,
when we're face to face, people are pretty nice to each other. My wife will always say to me whenever she's been at any wargaming events, and she's been to a few with me, how wonderful everyone is. She just thinks she's so friendly, they're so nice. Everyone's brilliant when you go to an event, and you should I often think you should see what they behave like when they're in a Facebook group. But people are genuinely pretty nice, and that's a good thing, because most of the time there aren't issues at events. But again, the same thing should be that when you're at your local club, when you're arranging a game with someone, that if you don't know them really well, that you almost go in with that sort of exploring, finding out about the game, the kind of game they want to play beforehand, that you're talking about it, you're communicating how many points, what kind of game you got. Tough, do you want to, are you practicing for an event? Is this a tough game, or do you want something really laid back? What sort of list do you bring in? All those kind of things are just really important, and you can prevent so many of the issues you may have, and that's for me is all part of the spirit of game as well. It's not just turning up with a really hard list and going, well, they should have brought something better, or really soft and expecting your opponent to enjoy. They might want a tougher challenge. The spirit of the game is about you trying to work together to do that, and it might well be that you both enjoy a different kind of game, so you have to come up with a deal with, well, I'll bring a tough list this week, but next week can you bring something so I can bring my really flavorful orc list or something like that, because it's fun. They're not very good, but it's fun. Can we have that kind of game? And again, communication. We talk about it all the time, but it's that, I think, recognizing all of those things is the key to the spirit of the game, the way I see it anyway.
I think, for example, last Friday I had a game of Battle March against one of my regular opponents, and I messaged him on the Tuesday and said, look, I know it's only a small game, 500 points, but just so you know, I've got 3 blocks of Skaven, so don't pick an army that can't handle big blocks of infantry, because it'll be over and we'll be playing 3 games during the night rather than one, if you just turn up with some stuff that can't handle 2 blocks of clan rats and a big pack of giant rats and a couple of rattling guns. It's not going to be a fun experience for you. And he said, all right, yeah, thanks for the heads up. And lo and behold, he turned up with a bunch of skinks, and some saurus and stuff that could generally dance around and try and whittle them down. I mean, it didn't really help him that much, because for some reason, unbeknown to me, I slipped straight back into the way of playing Skaven that I did when I was in my mid-20s. And the rattling guns, I couldn't roll under 18 on 2 dice for them all game. So it doesn't matter how many skirmishes you've got. If you're rolling 18 shots at them, you're going to get some hits sooner or later. And skinks aren't known for their resilience to warpstone piercing weapons, that's for certain. So,
No.
But at least give your opponent the heads up, and you'll find, as Stu says, you get a much better game out of it, because you'll find that people have got similar ideas about what they need to do to put themselves on a equal sort of like level. So definitely the way to go. Definitely the way to go.
Absolutely. So basically, be nice to each other where you can. Explore the kind of game that you're going to have beforehand, and when it's at an event or something like that, you talk as much about the game before you start as well, to make sure you're on the same page of how things are going to work. And generally, you'll be all right. Anyway, I think that's enough of that conversation. We're going to start repeating ourselves otherwise. So let's move on to the calendar winners. I'm going to read out 3. They're going to be YouTube usernames. I know who one of these people are, because they are a patron, actually. 2 of them I'm not sure where they are, because there'll be different names, etc. Need to get in touch. Apart from the last one, I'll send you a message. But so we've got Des Moines Dwarf. That's Des Moines, an area in the US, isn't it? Chicago area, I think, but I might just be getting it wrong. JT 9700, and then Stuck to Strong James, and the last one's easy enough because he's in the Discord. I'll send him a message in a bit. Get in touch, because I can't send you the calendars unless I know your address. So the 40k version of a podcast similar to this, 2 people have won it, and no one's got in touch to tell me where to send it to. But maybe they just realised that they don't want an Ultramarines calendar. Anyway, that's definitely a tangent we don't need for this podcast. Mark, what shout outs have you got before we let all these good people go?
Well, now you've revealed that Stuck to Strong James is one of the lucky winners. If you are in the Discord, have a look at the videos he puts up. They're fantastic. They're all to do with how putting yourself in the wrong position when you're painting, or doing any hobby can have a real nasty effect on your skeletal structure. And just shows you a few ways of sort of like readjusting that so that you don't end up with all the aches and pains that we all invariably get as we get older. So yeah, I'd definitely Stuck to Strong would be the first shout out. Then other shout outs, obviously Tom Carley at UK Resin Print, fantastic miniatures. Really, really nice guy. Just speak to Tom if you need anything. He's a lovely fella. David at Renown Forge, which a few of you may have seen featured on Stu's channel this week.
I'll pop a link in now.
Yeah, a couple of other channels, such as Pointy Paints. Really, really good campaign app. Looks like it's going to cover everything that you could ever need to do if you're running Path to Glory or anything like that, and has a fantastic retro White Dwarf battle report generator in it. Superb. Richie at Dowie After Dark. If you're a dwarf lover, even though they're not getting a lot of love from Games Workshop at the moment. And lastly, if anybody's going to an event this weekend, just have a really good time. Try and have fun, as we've said. Speak to your opponents, communicate well, and good luck, especially to all of my friends that are going to Forgotten North 4. I hope you all do really, really well and don't have to all play against each other, which I think you probably will have to. There you go. I think that's about it. It's a bit of a lengthy one this week, but I did promise I'd give shout outs to those people. So yeah, bear with me. And if you get a chance, do please have a look at their Discords and their YouTube channels.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, Stuck to Strong James. He's got a brand new YouTube channel, a brand new Instagram, and he's a yoga teacher among other things like that. So that's where a lot of that comes from, and he's
Brilliant.
a hobbyist. So he's just combining. So I will be doing something with him in the future. We haven't fully sorted it out yet, but and I won't go on about my potential joint problems right now. But there is a good connection there, and what I do. So he is good if you ever get sort of problems with stiff backs and necks and things from sitting and painting for a long time. There's some good fun takes on exercises you can do as well. But yeah, thank you as always for everyone for watching us rambling on. We have loads of fun doing it. Please do let us know your thoughts in the comments below on in-game etiquette and the spirit of the game and what it means to you, because I'll be really interested in seeing what you all think. As always, do check out all those links in the video description below. So the Patreon I mentioned earlier, come and join the Discord. As long as you're well behaved, you're welcome in that Discord, and come and join us for all the chatter there. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and we'll catch you soon.
Bye bye.